यजन्ति सात्विका देवा यक्ष राक्षंसी राजसः प्रेतान् भूतगणांश्चान्ये यजन्ते तामसा जनाः। Men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. In this verse, the Supreme Personality of Godhead describes different kind of worshippers according to their external activities. According to the scriptural injunction, only the Supreme Personality of Godhead is worshipable, but those who are not very conversant with or faithful to the scriptural injunctions worship different objects according to their specific situations in the modes of material nature. Those who are situated in goodness generally worship the demigods. The demigods include Brahma, Shiva, and others as Indra, Chandra, and the sun god. There are various demigods. Those in goodness worship a particular demigod for a particular purpose. Similarly, those who are in the mode of the passion, they worship the demons. We recall that during the Second World War, a man in Calcutta worshipped Hitler because thanks to the war, he had amassed a large amount of wealth by dealing in the black market. Similarly, those in the mode of passion and ignorance generally select a powerful man to be God. They think that anyone can be worshipped as God and the same results will be obtained. Now, it is clearly described here that those who are in the mode of passion worship and create such gods. And those in the mode of ignorance and darkness worship dead spirits. Sometimes people worship at the tomb of some dead man. Sexual service is also considered to be in the mode of darkness. Similarly, in remote villages in India, there are worshippers of ghosts. So we have seen that in India, and lower class people sometimes, go to the forest, and if they have knowledge that a ghost lives in a tree, they worship that tree and offer sacrifices. These different kinds of worship are not actually God worship. God worship is for persons who are transcendentally situated in pure goodness. In Srimad Bhagavatam 4:3-23, it is said, Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam. When a person is situated in pure goodness, he worships Vasudeva. The purpose is that those who are completely purified of the material modes of nature and who are transcendentally situated can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The impersonalists are supposed to be situated in the mode of goodness, and they worship 5 kinds of demigods. They worship the impersonal Vishnu form in the material world, which is known as philosophized Vishnu. Vishnu is the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the impersonalists, because they do not ultimately believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they imagine that the Vishnu form is just another aspect of the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, they imagine Lord Brahma is the impersonal form in the material mode of passion. Thus, they sometimes describe 5 kinds of gods that are worshipable, but because they think that the actual truth is impersonal Brahman, they dispose of all the worshipable objects as the ultimate end. In conclusion, the different qualities of the material modes of nature can be purified through association with persons who are of transcendental nature. Worship is a constitutional principle of life. Therefore, in the first place, the Lord is explaining worship in all the three modes. So whoever a person is, he needs some or the other object for worship. Worship is a constitutional principle. And here the Lord is differentiating now or categorizing the worship according to the Lord is categorizing here worship as per the object, as per the object. The demigods are worshipped by those in goodness, and Prabhupada says for a specific purpose. And the mode of passion, one is concocting some or the other person to be God, they're worshipping demons. And ignorance, person worships dead ghosts, spirits. We had mentioned this point before, but some time back, if you see, the Lord was categorizing demigod worship as demoniac. Here the Lord is giving grace marks. The Lord is telling, okay, demigod worship, fine, pass marks. Okay, fine. At least they're worshipping demigods. Srila Prabhupada in this purport is very interestingly stressing on the worship of and the Prabhupada is saying goodness only entails worship of demigods. Demigods. The demigods has certain saintly characteristics. So worship of management gurus or influencers or here stars, there stars, that is not demigods. Is it not? So that is mode of passion, or passion mixed with ignorance, as Srila Prabhupada points out. So what will come in demigod worship? So in fact, see, the interesting point here is one may say, okay, you know, uh, uh, none of these apply to us. Well, let's try to understand. So Prabhupada is qualifying. Let's try to understand. Prabhupada is qualifying the demigods as the mode of goodness worship. This means to say that worship. See, the whole point is that what differentiates all these three types of worship from from Shuddha Bhakti is that in this worship, one is not actually worshipping. One is actually, so that worship is being done for the goal of self-satiation or inflating or feeding one's own false ego. So ultimately, one is worshipping his false ego. That is the point. So in the modes, there is only worship of false ego which is taking place. And different routes will qualify as, okay, mode of goodness worship, passion worship, ignorance worship. That is the point. Now this goes to show that uh, so piety very much is coming in the zone of worship in the mode of goodness. Any sort of piety, ritualistic piety is coming in the worship of mode of goodness. Worship of mode of goodness. So now the point is that in all these three modes, the person is worshipping himself actually. That's the idea. So in one sense, we will see Shuddha Bhakti, and the Shuddha Bhakti, the point is that a devotee, he wants to serve. So his attitude is to offer service and please the object of service. That is a devotee. He wants to please Vaishnavas, he wants to please the Lord, he wants to please the Acharyas. So now, so when one is on the service front, then one is striking the relationship or reciprocating in the relationship. So service fosters togetherness. But worship in the modes is not like that. Worship in the modes is something else. Worship in the modes is basically worshipping of false ego. Now, worship in the false ego is not at all striking relationship. Worship in the false ego is a worship in the false ego is not at all striking relationship. Worship in the false ego is competitive. Competitive. One wants to prove himself greater, but for the time being, one is subservient to the other person. From there rises this principle of Panchopasana. That's why Prabhupada speaks so heavily about it. To use these five gods as a ladder to become God oneself. That's where Panchopasana comes from. So that's quite deadly on the path of living entity. Why? Because a person is so we will see service fosters togetherness and relationship, but whereas worship, now this kind of worship or worship of the false ego or worship within the modes is not service drive, it's a competitive drive, and one is using the other person to actually rise. The object to actually rise. So this kind of worship doesn't give any experience of any warmth. This kind of worship is intoxicating and dry. Because it's, in one sense, it is not worship at all. Offering service. No, accepting, following. Accepting, following. Accepting and following. That's what it means. So now when we read about bhakti tainted with modes, in that the bhakti portion is there. There is contamination or taint which will have its effect. No, it will give a masala effect in the process of bhakti. So, but what this is being talked about is a little difference. Here the bhakti component is not at all there because the object is not Krishna. So because the object is variegated, the only component is, so either it is Krishna or it is false ego. There is nothing else. Is it not? And now to establish false ego on the throne, different objects are being used. That is called as worship in the three modes. Whereas in bhakti in three modes, the object is Krishna, but different flavors. Is it not? So if it is goodness, one may experience the flavor of complacency. That is what one has to battle with. If it is passion, then one may experience great fatigue and tiredness. One is really tired of doing service. He gets burnt out doing service. How can one get burnt out doing service? One cannot get burnt out doing service. But what happened to this Prabhu? He got burnt out. So that means that is the flavor of passion. Like that. And how can one, and then in ignorance flavor, one becomes critical. One becomes lazy. So how can one be critical, staying in the association of devotees? That means there is an amalgamation of mode of ignorance. So these three modes will have its effect, and therefore, and the experience of bhakti gets flavored with that effect. But it is predominantly bhakti. Here, the object is not at all Krishna. Oh, one gets fried out in mode of passion. Because he wants to serve, but he wants to boss over. And when he wants to boss over, he experiences extreme frustration. Like that. That's mode of passion. He wants to serve, but he wants to only serve if he is made a temple president. So suppose he is made temple president, he'll be extremely frustrated. Why? Because nobody will follow him. So because nobody will follow him, then he will be feeling, okay, I'm temple president, but I'm not temple president. And everybody is saying I'm temple president, but I'm not temple president. Why? Because there's no praja. That's the idea. That's the idea. Therefore, it leads to burnout, frustration. Because one wants to establish himself also, and when one fails in that endeavor, he feels extremely frustrated and burnt out. So that happens in mode of passion bhakti. Okay, Vivek, who has a question?
Hare Krishna Guruji, Pranam.
Yes.
Guruji, in case of bhakti, when the object of worship is Krishna, over there we want to advance spiritually, and then so still there can be competitive feelings that and we want to advance more than others, like that. So I just wanted to confirm one thing, that this competitive feelings, does it have the root in envy?
Yes, competitive feeling has a root in envy. Envy arises from false ego, actually. That's the point. So one has chosen Krishna, but not heartily. That's what is happening in bhakti tainted with the modes. He's chosen Krishna, but he's not heartily. So there is, there is turmoil. So one has given it's like, okay, now sometimes one person gives donation, but he really didn't want to give donation. He has given donation, but he's feeling like taking it back. So so bhakti in mode of passion ignorance will be like that. One has established Krishna on the throne, but one is feeling, ooh, I want to put myself also. So in between he jumps also, like that. And then he realizes, no, it is becoming shameful, all Vaishnavas are watching, so he comes down again. Then in between again he jumps, like that. This is what happens with mode of passion and ignorance. So jump means what? He establishes false ego is supreme. That's the point. Time in between. And therefore critical mentality, competitive mentality, all these things. Critical shoots from ignorance and competitive shoots from passion, like that. So
that
hmm.
so that is like that is bhakti. We can call that bhakti.
Yeah, we can call that bhakti because he is worshipping Krishna. In between, he realizes he should not do this. Again, he falls trap. Again, he realizes he should not do this. So it is called as bhakti. So when
What are the
Krishna,
practical? Sorry, please. Sorry.
that's why it is called as bhakti. When the component of bhakti goes on reducing, then it may go into worship in 3 modes completely. So if Krishna is lost, it will go into worship in 3 modes. It depends on how much percentage bhakti is there in it. Like that. If it's piety, then it will be worship in the mode of goodness. Because piety, one is not actually worshipping Krishna. So the aspect of service and togetherness is not going to come. So this is the point. So worship in 3 modes, generally a person will be miserable. Because that will be the result of worship in 3 modes. Person will be miserable. Why is miserable? Because he is not offering any service. He is having expectations out, which he will not get. Which he will not get. Like demigod worship, there is expectation. But if that is not fulfilled, then the person is not inclined to go further much, is it not? So demigod worship is a slow route, very slow route, is it not? And now, especially in this age, it's a very slow route. People's demigod worship only gets reduced to offering some coconuts. That's all. He will only rise from 1 coconut to 3 coconut. But for himself, he's making 1 palace, 2 palace, 3 palace, 4 palace. Like that. That's the point. People will will offer a fan in the temple, but in that fan, their whole dynasty names will be written: his name, wife name, child name, daughter name, father name, grandfather name. So you've seen sometimes 3 fans, 12 names are written. I mean, 3 of the fan, 12 names are written. Whole dynasty is written. What he has donated is donated the fan. Everybody know the 12 names. That the air is coming from those 12 names. So that worship, that is mode of goodness worship. It's very, so it goes very cheap. One doesn't go anywhere much through that. It goes very cheap. So the transaction only starts happening when there is bhakti component. Yes.
And like if somebody wants, like in return, he should get a spiritual advancement. Like he is worshipping Krishna with an intention that I should be spiritually advanced. Then this getting thing, so is it bhakti?
Yes, that is bhakti. So when one wants to be spiritually advanced, then that is bhakti. Yes, but in between one forgets that temporarily. Then it is bhakti tainted within the modes. Yes, question. No, there was an online question. Tantric worship. Tantric worship. Sexual worship refers to tantric worship. So one of the aspects in tantric worship is some kind of sexual manipulations and all. It is very horrifying kind of worship, but it refers to that. Yeah. So all that is tantric worship. I mean, that is all mode of ignorance. Mode of ignorance, yes. But that is mode of ignorance actually. So so why worship in the mode of goodness is being acknowledged? Now we can try to understand. It is simply being acknowledged because at least the object is having some saintly characteristics. It is only for that reason. Okay, the demigods. Now film stars are not demigods. That's mode of passion ignorance, is it not? But demigods are actually Indra Chandra. Nobody else, is it not? So one is at least acknowledging saintly characters, at least having some saintly characteristics. That's the only reason why mode of goodness is being, that's the only reason it is being qualified. That's all. Otherwise, It is nasty. This kind of worship is nasty. This kind of worship is nasty. Yes.
Those who worship other demigods, they claim that like when they worship other demigods, they think that their demigod is the supreme.
Hmm.
And if you tell that like you have some expectation, they will know this is pure bhakti reject. They can bring a view. They can prove also because they are worshipping on the demigod from external point of view. So how to understand, because they are already from this verse, the categorization is only goodness, passion, and ignorance. So they are in goodness and they claim their personality is.
Yeah.
They are in bhakti.
So many times in Kali Yuga, okay, the question is that if one is worshipping the demigods, Indra, Chandra, Shiva, but some of them say that they don't have any expectation, and we can see they don't have any expectation. What happens to them? Two cases may be there. One is that it is genuine. So if they genuinely don't have any expectation, solely by worship of the demigods, their heart will be purified to such an extent that they will come to Krishna worship. So that the Shastras are speaking about, like the Prachetas, like Chandidas. No, Chandidas, because he was worshipping Mother Chandi, therefore his name is Chandidas. Because he was worshipping Mother Chandi. Mother Chandi gave him Krishna mantra. So one is very staunchly worshipping without any much motivations, has service attitude. Surely he'll understand Krishna. So that is the point. Like our Radhesham was a very staunch Shaivite, very staunch, cutter Shaivite, like that. So he was a staunch Shaivite. But when he heard the pure Krishna conscious philosophy, his heart started palpitating with that, is it not? This is what will happen to a person who's purely practicing. Like this, so one is purely worshipping, genuinely, he'll be promoted. The injunctions or the sweetness of bhakti itself will attract him. As soon as he gets an interface, how will he get an interface? The Lord will arrange, nothing to worry. That way, he will himself take it up. That's the point. Now, other thing is that the person may not be genuine. So then, what is he doing? In Kali Yuga, generally, what happens? There is this great culture of. So actually, in Kali Yuga, what happens is that because this age is so destructive, so sometimes the mentality of people comes that okay, if this person doesn't trouble me, that itself is a big thing, like that. So let us salute and give him some prize. So at least I give him some bribe, gift or bribe. So at least it doesn't create trouble in my life, like that. So that may also be the thing. Okay, demigod, you are supreme. You remain where you are. Don't trouble me at least. This is not. If you can give something, that is fine. If not, at least take this and be satisfied. I in my life, you in your life, like that. So that may also be the notion of supremacy. Got the point, no? So because in Kali Yuga, all these variations happen that way. So okay, this demigod is supreme, but let him be supreme. He's supreme in his world. I am supreme in my world. That may also be the case. That may also be the case, because you see, the principle of accepting has to be followed by Sharanagati, is it not? So what is the principle of accepting? Sarva dharman parityajya, is it not? Man mana bhava mad bhakto, is it not? Yad karoshi dasat ashnasi, These are some of the metrics by which you can understand really what it means to establish, someone is supreme, is it not? So, but that may be lacking. Then what is this acceptance of, so that means it's on basically, the note that okay, you remain supreme. It's fine, but let me do my things. Is that right? So there is no question of Sharanagati which is getting involved. So that will come in the mode of goodness only, nothing else. So it has to be seen from Lakshana, what is happening. So a devotee, when he is worshipping, he is offering everything to Krishna. Kaya, Manasa, Vacha, is it not? He is thinking of becoming Dasanudas, is it not? So that means if he has wealth, he will offer it to wealth, words, intelligence, physical energy, everything he'll offer, is it not? So that means that is Sharnagati, is it not? But with this Lakshana is missing, that means what? That means it's just piety, nothing else. Some people worship, accept Krishna also like that. He said, हमारे भगवान तो कृष्ण भगवान है, हाँ लेकिन आपके भगवान कृष्ण भगवान है तो माला कहाँ है आपका? Is it? नहीं, वो अंदर ही अंदर चलता रहता है. अच्छा है ना? तो फिर सेवा नहीं, सेवा कर लेते हैं वृंदावन में 1 साल में 1 बार जाके, है ना? तो बाकी टाइम तो हम मेवा खा रहे हैं, है ना? तो भक्ति में कुछ तो त्रुटि है, इसका मतलब that bhakti is not powerful. Yes.
So they are fearful, though they don't know if they will worship Krishna, Mother Durga automatically happens.
Yeah.
So that aspect they don't know, because initially when I went to Krishna consciousness, I was worshipping personally. So we used to worship everyone. Bhagwan Shiv, because temple business and such and such good realized character. But हाँ ये जो कृष्ण ही भगवान है, तो लगता है कि अब जितना व्रत वगैरह पहले कर रहे हैं ना, शिव जी को कर लेते हैं, माता दुर्गा को भी कर लेते हैं, तो अगर सब छोड़ देंगे एकदम से तो व्यक्ति को भय होता है. लेकिन जब व्यक्ति समझता है, इस फॉर्म में लेक्चर अटेंड करता है कि जब when you are worshiping Krishna, then you are more happy.
Yes.
And they don't want to accept the authority, though हर एक ने अपना अपना कुरान लिखी है. तो कोई बोलते हैं कि देवी दुर्गा से सब आए, टीवी सीरियल को उल्टा उल्टा दिखा देते हैं, शिव जी से सब आए. बट बिमला देवी जो खुद माँ दुर्गा है, वो तो जगन्नाथ का महाप्रसाद है. जब कृष्ण जो भगवान शिव है, वो शिव तो अनंत शेष को लपेट के रहे हैं ना, भगवान शिव भी विष्णु साफ करना कर रहे हैं. तो जब अगर वो सुप्रीम होते तो दूसरे को क्यों बज रहे? और अगर राम जी ने शिव जी का वर्शिप करके दिखाया है, तो वहाँ भगवान एक आइडियल कैरेक्टर फॉलो कर रहे हैं. लेकिन शिव जी खुद भगवान राम का कृष्ण का उसका नाम है. और देवी दुर्गा तो योग माया जैसे वो खुद ही बोल रहे हैं, वो कृष्ण की सेवा में खड़ी है. कृष्ण ही तो लोग बाहर सबसे सुनना नहीं चाहते. हाँ, ये इतना जरूर होता है. And we used to do fasting and all. So we were not asking for good grades in exams. We were asking for sympathy. So इसलिए we were directed by Mother Destiny, Devi Durga. She only directed us that go and worship Krishna.
Yes.
It really helped, because we were also doing this Monday fasting, Navratri fasting, and we also, because our Kuldevi is Vaishnavi.
Correct. Yes, so there are enough proofs by which we can understand Krishna's position,